eating breakfast,
Someone
just
moaned.
maybe...
We gave plenty of warning.
There was massive warning. And if you're eating breakfast, you might just want to park it for a minute. Flushable baby wipes and makeup wipes are just two of the many causes of blocked drains across the United Kingdom today. Britain's water companies and the Marine Conservation Society are calling for trading standards to stop wet wipe firms labelling them as flushable.
Yeah, we've got our very own Jane McCubbin, who's in Bristol for us this morning, investigating this. But no longer are you called Jane. From this point on, you are Flush Gordon. Take it away.
I like it. I like it. I hope it doesn't stick. Good morning from Bristol Sewerage Works. Good morning from Simon, who has the plum job of the wet. Take it away, Simon. Look at this. He's bringing in yet another delivery of wet wipes. A quarter, would you believe it, a quarter of all of the rubbish that Wessex Water digs out of the sewage network here in Bristol is actually wet wipes. Look at that. That's about 2 months worth of wet wipes right there behind me at the landmark you might not have heard of until today, Wet Wipe Mountain. And calls today for use of the word flushable to be banned because the claim is these things aren't quite flushable enough. Take a look at this. Britain loves wet wipes. Toilets hate them. Andrew knows only too well. Here in Barry, to unblock yet another blockage, he'll do about 5 a day.
Yep, there is something on the end of this.
Ugh. Blockages are a £7 million a year problem in Wales. He says there's one prime culprit.
Wet wipes. And what looks to be dental floss. People say they don't flush wet wipes, and all of a sudden the cause of the blockage is wet wipes or flushable wipes. They do say flushable on them, they do flush away, but unfortunately they just don't break up in the sewers. It's 2/3 of our blockages for Welsh Water, the company.
So just how flushable is flushable? Let's do a little test. This is loo roll. In a few minutes, it's pretty much disintegrated. Not so the flushable wet wipes, which Trade Association itself tells me can take up to 3 hours to fully disintegrate, and that is if they follow the voluntary code. If they don't, it could take far longer. That voluntary code is set by the manufacturers themselves. Let's see this test. But in this lab, they've created a far more stringent test.
Nothing gets anywhere close to passing.
Nowhere close to passing?
Nowhere close to passing. Nowhere close.
And this flushability test is the only test recognised by the water industry. You've tested all the big brands here. What do you make of that 3-hour claim? Do they?
No, most of them don't break down in 3 hours. In fact, some we've tested for 3 days or even 3 weeks, and they still do not break down.
And that is a problem for people like Andrew off on another call in South Wales, because a domestic blockage above ground can look like this below ground. A lot can stick to a wet wipe if they don't break down quickly. The water companies say action must be taken. Take flushable off the labels or come up with a better product. You've thrown out a challenge, haven't you, to the industry?
Yes, we've thrown out a challenge to the industry, to the manufacturers, to say if you have a wipe that would pass the UK guidelines, come and get it tested at WRC or show us the results of your own testing.
Nobody has.
Nobody has.
They say your flushables aren't flushable.
We know that they are. The wipes industry has made a huge amount of investment into making flushable wipes products as weak as possible for when they enter the water networks. The biggest problem are people putting things down the toilet that should never be there in the first place.
Work is underway on a new international standard, agreed by both manufacturers and the water industry, but that will still only be voluntary. As wet wipe demand continues to grow, so too will the problem of blockages. Well, in that extremely unscientific test that we did with the flushable wet wipes in the bottle, this was it. We did that film in a week ago, and we've brought it up here, and you can see that it's still pretty much intact inside the bottle. The claim is they don't break down enough. They're not flushable enough. Let me introduce you to, put that down, Luke Beattie here from Wessex Water. How big a problem for you is this?
Well, this is a big problem for us, but more importantly, it's a massive problem for our customers. And they are well-meaning consumers that are being hoodwinked into thinking they're buying a product that is flushable when clearly it's not.
Hoodwinked, conned. I mean, that's a pretty strong claim, isn't it? Because the manufacturers of these things say that actually they've come a long way in the last 8 years. Flushable 8 years ago might have meant that literally all it did was it went around the U-bend, but flushable now to the manufacturers means that it will break down. OK, not in the same way as toilet roll, but it breaks down.
Unfortunately not. I think this is really a marketing ploy. And really they are not flushable. They will go down the toilet, but then they clearly don't break down and they cause blockages. And I've been in these customers' houses and seen sewage across the kitchen floor, and it really is horrifying for families.
I sat next to, actually, on the train on the way down here, sat next to a plumber and told him what we were doing this morning on breakfast. And he said if people knew how much it cost to sort out blockages in their toilets, perhaps they would be less willing to put things down there. It costs a lot of money, doesn't it?
It does. It costs about 80 million in UK-wide for clearing blockages. And we think a large proportion of this is down to these, probably 2/3 is down to these wet wipes and flushable wipes. And the evidence is clear. I mean, you can see it here. They don't break down.
OK, so you're calling for this ban on the word flushable. Andy Drinkwater, who you saw in the white lab coat there in the film, who has he not, the best name for somebody who's involved in water research. He's working on the standards here. Can you give me the prop, yes, the last prop? Have a look at this. Do you remember Dan, Louise, Dragon's Den? Do you remember these from Dragon's Den? No. We've just pulled this off the heap. They were a teaching aid for kids to go to the toilet. They end up here as well. The rule is from Wessex Water, the 3 Ps, only put down the toilet: pee, paper, poo. Back to you.
Thank you very much with those thoughts.
Jane McCubbin. That's what she got into journalism for. Right, thank you for all your wet wipe comments as well. Helen says, just looking at one would tell you they're not flushable. The word should not be on the packaging. That's flushable. But really, people should just have enough sense not to flush them anyway. If I wrote flushable on an elephant, she says, I hope nobody would be trying to flush it. Good point, Helen. And Stella says, simply ban them. We're used to manage for years without any.
Well, I think lots of people will be thinking seriously about it if they need to today. And thank you, on a different note, for all your lovely pictures about Bake Off as well. Nice.